Do you have a dark curiosity? Heart Starts Pounding, Horrors, Hauntings, and Mysteries is a weekly podcast hosted by me, Kaylin Moore. Check out Heart Starts Pounding on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Cardiologist. The cardiology clinic occupied the quietest floor of the hospital, as if sound itself might interfere with outcomes. The walls were a muted blue meant to slow heart rates. It did not work on Howard. He checked in, sat, stood, then sat again. His chest felt fine now, which made him suspicious. He kept one hand over his sternum, feeling for inconsistencies, pauses, anything that might justify the appointment he had demanded after the subway incident. The nurse called his name and led him into a room dominated by machines. Cables hung from the walls like dormant organisms. "Shirt off?" she said. "Shoes too." Howard complied, folding his clothes with care that bordered on reverence. Electrodes were placed across his chest, cool adhesive circles mapping him into data points. Leads attached, the machine hummed softly. "Any chest pain currently?" she asked. "Nope," Howard said. She raised an eyebrow. "Shortness of breath?" "Nope." "Palpitations?" "Yes," Howard said immediately, then paused. "Sometimes." She nodded and left him alone with the machine. The EKG printed out a thin ribbon of paper, jagged peaks marching across it. Howard watched it feed through, convinced that he could see the moment it would go wrong. It didn't. The cardiologist arrived. Dr. Levin, tall and spare with a voice that suggested long conversations with bad news. "So," he said, glancing at the chart, "you scared yourself on the subway." Howard bristled. "I experienced acute chest pressure. I experienced acute chest pressure with associated prosthesia and tachycardia." Dr. Levin smiled faintly. "You Googled." "Yes," Howard said. Dr. Levin studied the EKG, then studied it again. Howard's stomach tightened. "Your rhythm is normal," Dr. Levin said. "Sinus, no ectopy, no ischemic changes." Relief surged so quickly Howard felt dizzy. "But," Dr. Levin added. Howard closed his eyes. "There's a variability here," the doctor continued. "Your heart rate response isn't quite proportional." "To what?" Howard asked. "To stimuli," Dr. Levin said. "Stress, movement. It accelerates appropriately, but the recovery is delayed." Howard swallowed. "Is that dangerous?" "Not inherently," Dr. Levin said. "It's just not typical for someone with your profile." There it was again. Profile. Pattern. Presentation. Dr. Levin tapped the screen, pulling up another graph. "Your heart rate variability is reduced," he said. "Subtly, but consistently." "What does that mean?" Howard asked. "It means your autonomic nervous system may not be communicating optimally. Could be nothing. Could be stress. Could be part of something larger." Howard laughed weakly. "Everything's part of something larger now." Dr. Levin did not disagree. "I'd like to order a Holter monitor," he said. 24 hours, maybe an echocardiogram, just to observe." "Observe what?" Howard asked. Dr. Levin met his eyes. "Your heart," he said. "When you're not watching it." The phrase landed wrong. The nurse returned with the monitor, strapping it to Howard's chest, wires disappearing beneath his shirt. "This will record continuously," she said. "Just live your normal life." Howard nodded. The machines weighed a constant reminder. As he left the clinic, he felt every beat amplified, documented, judged. His phone buzzed with another notification, another test scheduled, another specialist looped in. Howard stood in the hallway, surrounded by doors leading to parts of the body he no longer trusted. For years, he had been afraid his heart would stop without warning. Now, he was afraid it would keep going. "I hate the weekend." That was Howard's first thought as Saturday began. Saturday began like any other Saturday, except that Howard's body had become a conspiracy. Every movement, every sensation, every subtle ache or twitch had a hidden meaning. He woke before the sun, which was fine. There's nothing about sunlight to trust anymore anyway. The faint warmth of the heater on his face felt suspicious, as if it were a prelude to cellular rebellion. He got out of bed carefully, counting steps to the bathroom like a military drill, aware of how the muscles in his legs responded, checking for swelling or numbness. His reflection in the mirror startled him, not physically different, but somehow alien. The face was still his own, yet the eyes were calculating, monitoring, suspicious. Breakfast was impossible. Eggs seemed too soft, toast seemed too dry, coffee felt too aggressive. Each sip made his throat constrict in ways that might have been psychological, but probably weren't. He ate anyway, watching for signs of digestive failure, bloating, cramping, heartburn. None appeared, but Howard cataloged everything meticulously anyway. He tried to watch television. Disaster reports, floods, collapsing bridges, viral outbreaks. He couldn't focus. Every story read like a mirror of his own body. The minor abnormalities flagged by doctors in the past week became enormous, improbable catastrophes in his own mind. His liver could fail. His skin could rot from the inside. His heart could seize mid-breath. Teeth could crumble into dust while he brushed. Emails pinged in from various offices. New appointments, follow-up suggestions, reminders. Each one was a verdict. Each one was proof of an invisible, accumulating disorder. By late morning, he had recognized his apartment by symptom clusters. Chest, skin, dental, blood. Papers were everywhere, folders labeled in increasingly panicked handwriting. Cardiac, hematology, metabolic, derm. Notes scribbled in the margins read like someone cataloging the apocalypse. Heart not beating, wrong yet, but it will. Saturday afternoon was a series of micro-crises. A twitch in his left eyelid, stroke. Tingling in his fingers, neuropathy. Mild indigestion after lunch, pancreatic insufficiency. He walked from window to window, measuring the sun, checking pulse, listening to his breath as if it were a foreign language he could decode. By evening, Howard had created spreadsheets. Formulas predicting likelihoods of death by organ system. Graphs overlaying his last 6 years of labs with imagined deterioration curves. He ate nothing. He drank only water measured in milliliters. The world was a microscope, and he was the specimen. Saturday night collapsed into insomnia. He lay awake, every heartbeat amplified, every muscle fasciculating like a subtle signal. His skin itched for no reason. His teeth ached for no reason. His stomach churned for no reason. Sunday arrived, but it felt indistinguishable from Saturday, except slightly worse. He showered, but the water seemed to leach away not just dirt, but some hypothetical resilience. He cleaned the apartment obsessively, sanitizing surfaces, rearranging furniture to maximize access to first aid supplies. Every object was a potential instrument of self-preservation. He tried to distract himself, read a book. Couldn't focus. He tried to watch a movie. Not believable. He tried to take a nap. Pulse too loud, sheets too tight, breathing too conscious. By late afternoon, Howard had accepted that the weekend itself was the problem. Time, unstructured, was a breeding ground for deterioration. Each second stretched a hypothetical symptom blooming into full-blown catastrophe in his mind. He imagined blood clots, sudden organ collapse, malignant tumors multiplying in silence, systemic failures cascading. He made contingency plans for ambulance routines, hospital parking. Dinner never happened. Tea felt too weak. Water felt too potent. He sat in a chair in the middle of the apartment staring at the walls, imagining them closing in, imagining the soft hiss of malfunctioning systems inside of his own body. By the time Sunday night arrived, Howard was exhausted, dehydrated, tense to the point of trembling. He checked his pulse one last time, noted it was still regular, not reassuring, just waiting. He knew what tomorrow would bring, another appointment, another doctor, another confirmation that his body was conspiring in ways only it understood. Howard had always braced for the worst, but now the worst seemed to be spreading.
I'm Sally Helm with the podcast History This Week. In each episode, we serve as your eyes and ears into history's biggest events, major elections, world wars, scientific breakthroughs. But we also bring you into the smaller, behind-the-scenes stories, the unsung heroes, secret meetings, even personal grudges that changed the course of history. Listen to and follow History This Week, an Odyssey podcast in partnership with the History Channel. Available now for free on the Odyssey app and wherever you get your podcasts.
Monday morning. Howard's whole life felt like a Monday morning. Howard's weekday mornings were typically choreographed to perfection over the years. Every motion measured, every step predictable. He showered for exactly 7 minutes. Toothpaste precisely the correct amount. Shave. Left cheek, right cheek, upper lip, neck, in that order, with the razor held at a 30-degree angle. Socks matched perfectly. Shoes polished. Laces tied with the same tension each time. Breakfast. Plain oatmeal, no sugar, precisely 150 milliliters of milk. Coffee, 125 milliliters, no stirring after the first swirl. Every variable accounted for, every sequence repeated. By 8 a.m., he was dressed, fed, seated at his desk, the apartment in pristine symmetry. He grabbed his bag, checked his keys, phone, wallet, each item aligned with his habitual ritual. Then his phone buzzed. A notification from the office messaging system. Howard, your supervisor asked me to inform you, do not come in today. Your doctor advised it. Howard froze. He blinked, reread it. Which doctor? He typed quickly, hands trembling. He got a response. 3 words. All of them. Howard stared at the screen. He typed again, slower this time. All of them? He got a response. This time it was 4 words. Yes, all of them. He dropped his bag. The keys clattered on the floor. His oatmeal was half-eaten and cooling rapidly. Coffee had congealed slightly in the bottom of the mug. The apartment was suddenly suffocating, every object a reminder of his body's betrayal. Howard sat down heavily on the edge of his sofa. The thought he could not escape? Everyone at work now knew. Every employee, every colleague, every casual acquaintance who glanced at the office directory would know that Howard was too abnormal, too dangerous to enter the building. He pictured their faces, mild curiosity, speculative glances, whispered questions, rumors forming. Howard has something serious. You don't want to sit near him. Better avoid the break room today. His hand shook. He imagined emails circulating, the memo that didn't exist but everyone believed. Medical alert. Howard's abnormalities require remote isolation. Howard's morning routine felt absurd now, grotesque. The precision of his habits, the perfection of every mundane action mocked him. What was the point of oatmeal measured to 150 milliliters if the universe had decreed that he was fundamentally wrong? He leaned forward, elbows on knees, burying his face into his hands. The absurdity of the situation pressed in with crushing weight. He was home, alone, exposed. Everyone knew. No one understood. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. The hum of the heater, the faint groan of the refrigerator, the ticking of the wall clock, they all sounded like the deliberate ticking of a body-counting machine, counting his abnormalities, counting his inevitable collapse. Howard stayed there for hours, thinking of nothing else. The familiar became terrifying. His bed, his chair, his desk, each a witness to the mysteries that no doctor could explain. He imagined each organ plotting against him in secret coordination, each cell harboring secrets no physician could decode. By mid-morning, he realized he had not moved from the sofa, not even to check his phone again, not even to sip water. The only motion was his breathing, shallow, quick, irregular, and even that, he suspected, was abnormal. He knew tomorrow would bring another set of appointments, another round of specialists, Another series of ambiguous, terrifying findings. And the office, his colleagues, would be waiting, watching, judging, whispering. Howard exhaled slowly, tried to remind himself of something rational, but rationality had abandoned him long ago. All he could do was sit and wait and feel the relentless accumulation of all of them. And for the first time, being home alone did not feel like relief. It felt like a cage. Howard sat in a dimly lit room, the air thick with a sterile smell of antiseptic and something metallic he couldn't quite place. A bank of monitors lined one wall, blinking softly, each displaying streams of data he didn't understand. A dozen doctors stood around the room, white coats, stethoscopes, clipboards. Their eyes were calm, clinical, but there was something in the way they watched him, as if he were both patient and specimen. He tried to shrink into the chair, the leather cool beneath his back, but the circle of authority held him in place. Dr. Linhart stepped forward, tapping the screen. "Howard," she said, voice even, almost detached. "We've compiled the imaging from your scans and the recent labs. We'd like to show you exactly what we're observing." Howard nodded. He could not speak. His throat felt tight. His pulse thrummed like drumbeat he could not command. The screen flickered. A 3D rendering of his body appeared. Bones, organs, vessels, layered and rotating. The colors were wrong, unnatural, veins pulsing with hues of violet and black, arteries swollen and spiraling. His liver undulated like a living creature, each lobe twitching in isolation. The heart throbbed not just in his chest, but across the screen irregularly, almost insectile, each contraction sending a shockwave through the surrounding tissue. Howard's stomach knotted. He felt something shift in his own chest, echoing the impossible rhythm on the monitor. "Look here," Dr. Lenhart said, gesturing to the screen. "We're seeing structural anomalies across multiple systems. Not degenerative, not inflammatory. Something else entirely. It's proliferating in ways we cannot yet classify." He squinted. Could it be real? It was inside him. It was him. The veins twisted like roots, organs pulsing with a slow, deliberate consciousness. The textures were wrong, spongy where they should be firm, dense where they should be soft. A faint webbing of luminescent filaments stretched across the musculature, contracting independently of his voluntary motion. "What is it?" Howard asked, voice tight, tremulous. Dr. Lenhart's lips pressed together. The room remained silent. "We don't know," she said finally. "We have no classification. It does not match anything documented. We can observe, we can measure, but we cannot stop it." Howard's hands went to his chest. Every beat felt magnified, echoed. He tried to breathe steadily, failing, tried to move, could not decide whether movement would help or worsen the thing inside of him. Another doctor leaned closer to the monitor. "It's advancing faster than expected. We've been monitoring over several hours, but the structures are changing in real time." Howard's vision flickered. His skin crawled. The air was heavy and thick and wet with possibility. He wanted to scream, wanted to demand explanation. He wanted to vanish. Instead, he sat. He could feel it beneath his ribs, inside his skull, in every cell, a creeping, deliberate rearrangement, a pattern forming that he could neither interpret nor resist. The doctors continued to study, taking notes, murmuring quietly to one another. Their detachment was maddening. They observed him like a specimen, a puzzle, an object. He tried to imagine moving, running, fighting, but the weight of his own body pinned him in place. Howard realized then with a sick clarity that the spectacle was not just for them. It was for the body itself. The thing inside him moved with its own will, and he, in his chair, could do nothing The screens rotated, the veins writhed, the filaments stretched, his organs throbbed and pulsed. The rhythmic beating of his own heart was no longer familiar. It was irregular, deliberate, almost conscious. Each breath felt invaded, as if something deep inside of him had begun to orchestrate its own motions, ignoring his will entirely. He flexed his fingers. They obeyed him, but only barely. The doctors spoke amongst themselves, pointing at the monitors, their voices low, clinical, precise. Words like proliferation, systemic anomaly, unclassifiable floated through the air, but Howard could only hear the underlying message. They did not understand him. Dr. Lenhart stepped forward again, her expression solemn. "Howard," she said, her voice almost gentle, "this, whatever this is, it's beyond the scope of our facility. We cannot safely continue observation here. The risk to both you and anyone else in a normal clinical environment is too great." Howard's stomach clenched. Risk? To me? To anyone else? His voice was weak but rising. "You mean I'm dangerous?" Dr. Lenhart didn't answer immediately. She gestured to the other doctors, who nodded in unison. Their eyes were calm, but their gaze was sharp, assessing, calculating. "You are not merely a patient anymore," she said carefully. "You are a subject of systemic concern. The anomalies we are observing are unprecedented, and they are spreading in ways we cannot predict or contain." Howard felt sweat bead on his forehead, his chest tightening. Not pain, not exactly, but something deeper, something knowing. The thing inside him was aware of the conversation, of the conclusion of its own trajectory. Dr. Lenhart continued, her tone clipped, precise. "We are arranging transfer to a secure federal facility. Specialized research teams there can continue observation, containment, analysis. It is not optional. You are not being admitted for care. You are being transferred for containment and study." Howard's mouth went dry. Containment? Study? What about... "You will be monitored continuously," she said, cutting him off. "All protocols will be followed. You will have minimal contact with the outside world. This is for your safety and the safety of those around you." He tried to move, to stand, to protest. His legs felt heavy, inert, as if the chair itself had grown roots onto the floor. His pulse raced, but faster than before, unpredictable, almost mocking. He could feel the filaments stretching within him, each beat of his heart a silent assertion that he was no longer his own. A nurse approached with a clipboard. "We have transportation arranged. It will arrive shortly. Please remain seated." Howard's eyes darted around the room. The monitor still rotated through grotesque renderings of his insides, arteries twisting, organs pulsing, filaments writhing like some impossible ecosystem. The doctors watched him carefully, noting every micro-expression, every tiny spasm. He opened his mouth to speak again, but the words caught in his throat. There was nothing he could say, nothing he could do. The power he had clung to, rituals, routines, spreadsheets, meticulous schedules, all of them had evaporated. Howard realized with a sudden, suffocating clarity that he was no longer just a patient. He was a specimen, an exhibit, a problem to be contained. The door opened. Two figures in dark uniforms entered, moving quickly, silently. Howard's chest rose and fell with a pulse he could not control. He felt the first cold fingers of inevitability brush against him as they gestured toward the church leading out of the room. The facility beyond those doors would not care for him. It would only observe, record, measure, and contain the thing growing inside of him. The monitors continued to pulse behind him, recording every shudder, every twitch, every impossible motion of a body that no longer belonged to him.
I'm Sarah Turney.
And I'm Courtney Nicole.
We're the hosts of the Crime House original podcast, The Final Hours.
crime has impacted both of our families, teaching us how the last conversations, the missed red flags, can change everything.
On the final hours, we examine the moments before a disappearance and the questions that never got answered. A podcast that puts the moments before a disappearance under a microscope.
Listen to and follow The Final Hours, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Church. Howard was sent to church. His knees pressed into the cold stone floor, yet he did not falter. The semicircle of priests and doctors leaned in, the fabric of their robes rustling softly, shoes scraping faintly against the flagstones, clipboards tapping. Their eyes were wide, calculating, careful. Every glance was a probe, every whisper was a measurement. Every micro-expression, every twitch of the pen, every shallow breath, they were feeding him, intentionally or not, like a current of energy streaming straight into his chest. The anomaly inside of him pulsed, sending waves of sensation coursing through his body. He could feel it in the tips of his fingers, in the small bones of his feet, stretching through muscles, curling in his organs. Every twitch, every tiny oscillation was alive, intelligent, responding. It acknowledged the room. It acknowledged the scrutiny. And slowly, delightfully, Howard began to smile. It was not relief. It was not hope. It was a grin that stretched too wide. A spark of recognition in his chest. No one, not one person, could touch him. Not medicine, not ritual, not science, not prayer. The anomaly had rewritten the rules, and he was the embodiment of that rewrite. Priests whispered a prayer, slow, low, the syllables curling through the space like smoke. Howard could feel the vibration in his chest, felt the words pressing against the filaments under his skin. Instead of fear, he felt something else. A thrill. The words collided with the organism inside of him, and it responded. He felt a faint shiver run through his spine, then settle into his shoulders and down through his arms and legs. He flexed his fingers experimentally. Howard's gaze wandered. The candles lining the walls flickered, shadows leaping across the pews, across the faces of the priests, across the stethoscopes dangling from white coats. He could feel the anomaly's awareness stretching outward, brushing against the edges of the room, tasting the fear, curiosity, and awe of the assembled humans. It pulsed faster. He could hear a faint hum now. It was the machines. Or it was his own body. Or maybe something else entirely. Howard did not care. Time stretched. The whispers of the priests became a low vibration, almost musical, a backdrop to the thrum of his own heart and the deliberate rhythm of the organism inside of him. Each beat of his chest sent a ripple across every organ, every vein. Muscles twitched in perfect synchrony, the anomaly responding not just to the thought, but to instinct, anticipation, and desire. Howard's lungs drew in air deliberately, not out of need, but because he wanted to feel the motion, to taste the power flowing through him. A doctor leaned in closer, adjusting a monitor. A soft click of buttons echoed in the vaulted chamber. Howard felt the click reverberate through his bones. It was absurd, exquisite, like the world was a toy designed solely for his perception, and every human motion, every mechanical sound, every whispered syllable was an instrument for the anomaly's pleasure, and his. He laughed softly, not the tiny nervous laugh of a man who had feared illness his whole life, but a deep, rolling sound, low in his chest, resonant. The priests all flinched. One clutched a cross tighter. Another's head jerked up as if startled by the vibration in the air. The doctors scribbled faster, whispering to one another, their voices rising in tension, fascination, panic. Howard felt the anomaly stirring beneath his ribs. Each pulse of his heart synchronized to the fear and awe around him. He stretched his arms wide, slowly, deliberately, feeling every inch of his body respond. Not as a malfunctioning flesh, but as perfect, uncontainable machinery. The anomaly hummed along with him, a living, deliberate extension of his own will, and Howard felt something he could never have imagined. Pleasure, exhilaration, a sense of self he had never known before. He was more than a man. He was impossible, untouchable, radiant in the horror of his own existence. The priests spoke louder, their words forming a chant, echoing against stone walls. Howard could feel the vibration sweep through him. He let the sensation swell until it filled every nerve ending. The fear that had once ruled him, the terror of illness, of fragility, of death, was gone, replaced with something primal, something darkly magnificent. Howard closed his eyes. He could sense the anomaly moving beneath his skin, its tendrils stretching in new directions, probing limits he hadn't even known existed. It pulsed in patterns he could feel in his teeth, in the soles of his feet, in the tiny muscles behind his eyes. It was aware. It was deliberate. It was alive. And Howard was the conductor. Or, perhaps, he thought, the accomplice. Howard opened his eyes again. The priests, the doctors, the candles, the monitors, the room itself. It all seemed to shrink around him. Secondary to the sensation coiling and pulsing within, Howard inhaled slowly, deliberately, savoring the rhythm, the hum, the impossible joy of knowing that no one could stop him. The anomaly was eternal, untamed, untouchable. And now, so was he. Howard leaned back into his chair. He did not tremble. He did not shrink. He rejoiced. Every nerve, every organ pulsing in harmony was a chorus of impossible power, of terrifying vitality. Every observation, every whispered speculation from the humans circling him only amplified the feeling. There was no cure, and therefore, there was nothing to fear.
I'm Sarah Turney.
And I'm Courtney Nicole.
We're the hosts of the Crime House original podcast, The Final Hours.
Crime has impacted both of our families, teaching us how the last conversations, the missed red flags, can change everything.
On The Final Hours, we examine the moments before a disappearance and the questions that never got answered. A podcast that puts the moments before a disappearance under a microscope.
Listen to and follow The Final Hours, available now wherever you get your podcasts.